Greetings from Singapore, and thank you all for joining us here at the IMO UNEP Norway Zero and Low Emission Innovation Forum. Today, we are officially launching the NextGEN virtual portal with our partners at the IMO. What does NextGEN stand for? GEN stands for Green and Efficient Navigation. It is an IMO Singapore initiative for the global maritime community to foster collaboration on maritime decarbonization. Now, this idea started as a circle of collaboration back in June 2020, when NextGEN Mr. Kitak Lim and I were fellow panelists at a UNGC meeting on sustainable ocean business. So NextGEN was developed to serve as a circle of collaboration to bring together different stakeholders, including ports, governments, companies, research institutes, to share knowledge on low and zero carbon fuels. Now, it is meant to be inclusive. It is meant to help all stakeholders towards the future of green shipping. Let me now share a little bit more on the steps we have taken since NextGEN was announced in September 2020. Singapore and the IMO co-organized the NextGEN inaugural meeting on 23rd April during the Singapore Maritime Week. Over 70 international participants from governments, industry, international organizations, and academia attended. We discussed the challenges faced by small island developing states, SIDS, and least developed countries, LDCs, in their decarbonization journey, and the actions that's needed to facilitate collaboration across the maritime and energy supply chain. We then produced a summary report. So today, the NextGEN virtual portal comes into play as a one-stop portal bringing together the universe of existing projects. I'm really pleased to announce today that the NextGEN portal already encompasses over 140 projects spanning over 500 partners, 13 fuel types, and from a diversity of regions including Africa, the Caribbean, Latin America, Middle East, and the Pacific Islands. In particular, the portal spotlights global collaborative projects led by the IMO and the Maritime Technology Cooperation Centres, MTCCs, which support maritime decarbonization in seats and LDCs through technical assistance, technology transfer, and capacity building. So following NextGEN's beta launch, we have already received positive feedback that this portal is very useful. So we are really thrilled to be formally launching it with you today. Finally, building on the data collected through the virtual ecosystem, we have worked with our partners at the National University of Singapore Centre for Maritime Studies on a gap analysis. We hope that these insights will guide NextGEN stakeholders in identifying actionable and inclusive solutions. My colleague Han Chiang later will share with you some of the top-line findings. So, looking ahead, we encourage all to generously share information and updates about maritime decarbonization projects that you are working on. This will allow NextGEN to be consistently updated and users can benefit from them. Use the Contact Us form on the site, which you will see shortly in our virtual tour. And with more projects uploaded, we are confident that this will inspire and catalyze further collaborations to come. The progress we have made with NextGEN would not be possible without the hard work of our teams, both at the MPA and the IMO. Singapore is a long-term partner of the IMO, and we greatly value the idea sharing and support that comes with this partnership. So on behalf of Singapore, I would like to express our appreciation to all colleagues at the IMO who's been involved in this. The IMO's Department of Partnership and Projects, DPP, Public Information Services Department, PIS, and the ICT Department, who have been instrumental in creating NextGEN together with us. We also thank all stakeholders who have contributed generously to NextGEN's development. So let me now conclude. We'll do a short virtual countdown to the official launch of the NextGEN virtual ecosystem. Let us now count down together. 3, 2, 1. NextGEN is now live at nextgen.imo.org. Thank you and stay tuned for a short virtual tour of the NextGEN website.
Welcome to NextGEN, the global and inclusive portal for information on maritime decarbonization. Here, you can find the universe of maritime decarbonization initiatives and search for relevant project information. NextGEN has three main objectives: raising awareness, identifying opportunities, and forming networks for collaboration and information sharing. With the increasing trends of decarbonization and digitalization in shipping, NextGEN supports technical cooperation, capacity building, and technology transfer to help countries attain the goals of the IMO initial strategy. As a partnership between the Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore and the IMO, NextGEN brings the maritime industry closer to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Importantly, NextGEN provides a platform to consolidate and visualize the universe of maritime decarbonization initiatives. If we type in ammonia, curated ammonia-related initiatives are listed. Next, let's select Singapore. As you can see, there are 4 of such projects currently listed. Let's check out the Castor initiative. At one glance, the user can see all the key international stakeholders of this project, relevant details on the project scope, duration, deliverables, and funding. Relevant sources are also included. On the projects page, you may search according to countries, types of funding, and partners to identify key projects of interest. Under categories, there are options to identify projects under the labels capacity building, fuels, infrastructure, and ships. Likewise, users can select the types of funding and available partners. Through selection and filtering, you can further distill initiatives and projects. This is especially helpful if you are doing a scan of all the projects that fall under a particular fuel or technology type, like ammonia, or from a specific country. So if we then select all possible options, this is what we will see. A map populated with decarbonization initiatives. If we have a specific initiative in mind, we can also search for it easily with the project name. For example, the IMO Norway Green Voyage 2050. Once again, the user can see at a single glance all the countries that are involved in this Green Voyage project. Likewise, let's search for the Maritime Technology Cooperation Centre for the Caribbean, MTCC Caribbean. It appears here together with all countries where MTCC Caribbean projects are based. Besides being represented geographically, decarbonization projects are represented via a network map which shows the interlinkages between different categories. This is important to examine the link and potential synergies between projects and fuel types, which can help to seed collaborations and reduce resource duplication. For instance, under biofuels, these are the relevant projects. When we click on the Pacific Blue Shipping Partnership, we see these linkages. Next, let's take a look at the Partners page. This is a web page listing the strategic partners of NextGEN. If you are interested in joining us on NextGEN, click here. Here, you can submit a project to be added to the NextGEN platform, ask a question, or indicate your interest to get involved as a project partner. It's easy, just fill in the information and click Submit. Here on the NextGEN portal, you can also check out the consolidated news page to stay updated on the latest news on maritime decarbonization. Likewise, the Resources page offers a helpful one-stop landing page where key documents and reports on maritime decarbonization can be found. If you or your organization has done work in this area and wish to share your report or publication on NextGEN, feel free to get in touch with us. We hope that you will find the resources on NextGEN useful, and we welcome you to submit your decarbonization initiatives to us. NextGEN is more than a portal, however. It also aims to identify the key opportunities and gaps in maritime decarbonization to ensure that no country or company is left behind. Let me now pass the time over to Mr. Tan Han Chiang from the Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore, who will introduce some of the top-line findings from the NextGEN Gap Analysis study.
Thank you, Minerva. With the information on the projects that we collected for NextGEN, 144 in total so far, we undertook a preliminary analysis with researchers at the National University of Singapore to get a sense of where the maritime sector was in its decarbonization journey. However, before I present the findings, we must qualify that these findings are based on the information that we gathered through open sources and our own contexts. We will most certainly have missed some projects, which is why we strongly urge entities undertaking decarbonization initiatives in the maritime sector to reach out to us through the website. Let us begin. To analyze the projects on the NextGEN portal, We first split them into three key building blocks. First, projects related to vessel or onboard technologies, for example, developments in engine and ship design. Second, projects related to infrastructure that produce and deliver alternative fuels, for example, production of ammonia and hydrogen. Third, capacity building projects that promote cooperation, training, and access to funding. For example, the IMO's network of Maritime Technology Cooperation Centers, or MTCCs for short. Let us first start with the building block on vessel and onboard technologies. There are 75 projects in this category. Majority of these projects, more than half, are based in Europe, with roughly a third based in Asia. What we observe is that while majority of the projects were in Europe, these projects tended to be on niche technologies and on smaller ships, such as passenger ferries, with a focus on hydrogen and batteries. However, the projects in Asia tended to be on larger ships, with more interest in the use of ammonia, although there are still projects on other fuels. Based on technology readiness levels, or TRL, of the projects, batteries and biofuels appear to be close to deployment given the large proportion of these projects in the deployment phase. This is perhaps unsurprising given the use of these fuels in land transportation. Hydrogen and ammonia are less mature technologically, but have certainly garnered substantial interest compared to other emerging technologies. Both have relatively high number of projects in the basic research and development phases, and a high number of projects overall. Let us move on to infrastructure projects. There are 52 projects in this category. Like projects related to vessels, the majority of these projects are based in Europe. Interest in hydrogen and ammonia is again more substantial, with methanol and ethanol projects coming in a distant third. Like projects related to vessels, the projects on hydrogen tend to be focused on smaller, short-haul vessels, such as ferry services, or projects on ammonia tend to be on large, long-haul vessels, particularly large container vessels. Battery projects tend to be focused on charging infrastructure, suggesting that this may be one key hurdle to commercial deployment. Europe appears to be a leader in the infrastructure for hydrogen and methanol/ethanol. On the other hand, there is a more even distribution of interest in ammonia. The distribution of infrastructure projects is of importance, as a successful adoption of an alternative fuel for long-haul shipping would require a network of bunkering nodes across different regions, and thus require a more even distribution of readiness. Lastly, capacity building. There are 17 projects that fall in this category, significantly less than the previous two categories. The projects are generally evenly distributed around the world, the most number of projects being global in nature, and we take global to mean involving two or more regions or continents. The majority of the projects are coordinated by the IMO, with the rest being self-initiated by industry or specific regions. These projects tend to be multifaceted in nature, meaning they cover various aspects such as funding, leadership, and training. Naturally, the overwhelming majority of projects focus on cooperation. So what do these numbers and observations tell us? Based on the analysis we have performed and the knowledge we have of the regions and technologies, it appears that what we are seeing reflects the differing regulatory landscapes and maritime interests of different regions. There are also differing regional business interests. This is partly long-standing, but also related to different regulatory landscapes. The decarbonization agenda in Europe has led to keen interest in technologies that can be applied to intra-EU trade and passenger transport. Some European companies are long-standing leaders in certain niche onboard technologies, such as ship engine design and development. Asia, with its primary export markets in Europe and US, is perhaps more interested in long-haul shipping, given the importance of the East-West and Trans-Pacific routes to their destination markets. Asia is also the heart of shipbuilding. When it comes to capacity building, the fewer number of projects are not necessarily a concern, given the nature of intergovernmental cooperation. What is perhaps more important is that these projects meet the needs of countries, are sustainable in the long run, and are as inclusive as possible to enable countries to exploit the opportunities that decarbonization offers. Ultimately, what we have found so far is that decarbonization in the maritime sector is underway. The multiple fuels and technologies we see is natural of any transition, but one area that we may perhaps need to pay attention to is the development of common infrastructure across different regions to ensure that long-haul shipping will have sufficient supply nodes to make the use of alternative fuels a reality. Thank you, and I hope you found this analysis useful.